All right. Good afternoon. Let's begin with continuing where we left off, which is siftes. It's forbidden to purchase from a thief something, a stolen object from a thief. That's a very big avera. Because it reinforces, it strengthens, it lends support to those who are over an avera. And about this, it says, a pasuk in Mishlei, person who shares with a thief hates himself, hates his own soul, meaning is doing himself a terrible disservice by being a party to this aver. Moreover, he causes the thief to steal more again in the future. Because if he's not going to find somebody to sell a stolen object, so he's not going to steal. Even though it's possible, even if you don't buy from him, what we just said, if you're not going to buy from him, he's not going to steal. Maybe he's still going to steal. He's going to be able to go somewhere else where nobody's going to know that he's a ganav, nobody's going to know that it's stolen. Just going to present himself like a regular merchant. Nevertheless, in zamatzah kol kach. That's not very common. And if in where he is locally, everyone who knows him and everyone who recognizes him and everybody knows that he's a thief is not going to buy from him, he's not going to steal as much. Therefore, it is forbidden for anyone who knows this thief to buy from him. Likewise, it is also forbidden to steal from a gazlan, meaning until now we're talking about a ganav. A ganav is somebody who steals in secret. A gazlan is somebody who steals brazenly, publicly. In any case, it's forbidden to buy stolen goods from a ganav or from a gazlan. Unless the only exception when it is permitted to buy stolen goods is when you have in mind to return it to its rightful owners, and they'll reimburse you. And we're talking about in a case where if you didn't buy it yourself, if you didn't buy it, the owners would not be able to get it back any other way. So you're doing them a favor. So therefore, even though stolen objects are asr b'hana, as we're going to learn in more clearly in later sifim, nevertheless, in this case, it's permitted to buy it because you're doing it in order to return it to its rightful owner. Now, this sif that we just read seems very straightforward and simple, and it is. However, I'd like to spend a few minutes just explaining some background, some important information about what the Alter Rebbe is saying over here, because just first of all, to understand pshat, simple pshat in what the Alter Rebbe is saying, which Lanias Daiti, there's a simple nakuda here that is perhaps overlooked, and also just it'll give us appreciation of how every word in the Alter Rebbe is every word of the Alter Rebbe is important and meduyik. So, a little bit of an introduction. There's Gemara in Maseches Avodah Zarah, a very famous Gemara. The Gemara says as follows. There's a Mishnah in Maseches Avodah Zarah, first Mishnah, Beis Amud Aleph, Lifnei Adei and Shalev the Kechavim, that before, after, around the time of Adei and Shalev the Kechavim, holidays, festivals of Avodah Zarah, of idolaters, Asr Lasis, when it's forbidden to do business, to buy from them, to sell from them. There are certain restrictions on what type of business transactions a person is allowed to do with Avodah Zarah around the times of Adei and Shalev the Kechavim, around the times of their festivals and holidays. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah, Davav Amud Aleph, says as follows: Yibaylo mishum harvacha What's the reason that it's forbidden to do business with an Oived Kechavim around the time of Eidin Shalei Kechavim? Is it because of Harvacha? Is it because the idolater, the Oived Kechavim, benefits from you doing business with him, and then he's going to be, if he was able to buy a nice behemoth for his pagan rituals, then he's going to be very happy, and he's going to go and he's going to thank his deity, and a person is going to be over on the Isser of Leisham al Picha. That's one approach. The Gemara says. Another one is Lifnei Iver Lesitin Michshel. Perhaps the reason is because Lifnei Iver Lesitin Michshel. There's an Isser Dairaisa Lifnei Iver Lesitin Michshel, not to place a stumbling block in front of a blind person, which one of the Yisurim that come out of this pasuk is it's forbidden to cause someone to transgress an Avera. And even non-Jews have a mitzvah or an Avera of Avedas Kechavim. So when you sell a guy something that he could use for Avedas Zara, so there's an Isser of Lifnei Iver Lesitin Michshel. So what's the reason? What's the difference if it's because of Harvacha or it's because of Lifnei Iver Lesitin Michshel? Says the Gemara, the nafkamina is if the Oived Kechavim already has his own animal. If the reason is because of Harvacha, then if you're selling him another animal, so then he has a benefit from that, and he might still go and rejoice and give thanks and praise to his Avodah Zarah. So it would still be forbidden if it's because of Harvacha. But if it's because of Lifnei Iver Lesitin Michshel, and he already has his own animal that he would have sacrificed to Avodah Zarah were it not for you selling it to him, so then there should be no Isser of Lifnei Iver Lesitin Michshel. So again, the Gemara asks, and so what if he has his own animal? There's a brayso that says, Amar Rabbi Nasan, Minayin shelo yeshet adam kais yain lenazir, ve'ever menachai lebnei noach. From where do we know that a person should not extend a cup of wine to a nazir, was forbidden from drinking wine, or an ever menachai to a ben noach, to a non-Jew who is also commanded not to eat ever menachai? Lifnei Iver Lesitin Michshel. It's the Gemara, so you're not allowed to give a guy Iver Menachai, even though he could take it himself, or even though he maybe has his own. So how come over here we're saying that Lifnei Iver Lesitin Michshel, if the guy has his own animal for Avedas Kechavim, for Avedas Zara, there would be no Isser to sell it to him? Says the Gemara, no. That brayso minayin shelo yoshet adam kais yain lenazir Iver Menachai lebnei noach is talking about betrei Ivri de Nahara, when they're standing on two opposite banks of a river. The guy is on one bank of a river, and a Yid and you are standing on the other bank of the river with an Ever Menachai, or a Nazir standing on the other bank of the river with, and you're standing on the other side with a Kais Yayin. So they have no way of getting it on their own. When you give it to them, there is an Isser of Lifnei Iver Lesitin Michshel, because you are enabling them to do an Aver that they would not have been able to do. But in the case of the Gemara over here, where the guy would have his own animal, you're not enabling him to bring a sacrifice to Avodah Zarah. He would have been able to do it anyway. There is no Isser of Lifnei Iver Lesitin Michshel. That's the Gemara in Avodah Zarah. In Masechah Shabbos, Tosfos, Daf Gimel Amud Aleph Masechah Shabbos, talk about first Mishnah Masechah Shabbos. Tzias Shabbos Shnayim Shein Arba. The Mishnah, famous example in the Mishnah, there's an ani and the balabayas, and the ani is standing outside the house, the balabayas is standing inside of the house, and you're transferring objects from one domain to another domain, and this is the deraisa of Haitzah and Shabbos from Rishus Hayachat to Rishus Harabim. So they're again, not getting into the whole sugya over there, akira hanacha, but one of the cases in the Mishnah is the balabayas is standing inside the house and he's holding an object. The ani stands outside in the Rishus Harabim, extends his hand into the Rishus Hayachat, takes the object out of the balabayas' hand and brings it outside into the Rishus Harabim. The ani, the person standing outside, was over an Isser Deraisa Veitzah. The balabayas, the Gemara says, pater and mutter. It's mutter, he didn't do anything. Correct, Taisus, all the Rishonim. What do you mean mutter? Lifnei Iver Lesitin Michshel. You're enabling the ani to perform an Isser. You're causing him to transgress an Avera. We just learned in Masechas Avodah Zarah that it's only Lifnei Iver if he wouldn't have been able to do it on his own. But if he's able to do it on his own, if it's not betrei Ivri de Nahara, if it's not on two opposite banks of a river. So over here, the balabais is holding it in his hand. But if he wasn't holding it in his hand, it was on the table, he still wouldn't have been able to do it. He would have been able to do it on his own. So there is no isser of Lifnei l'sit mishal. Says Taisus and Masech Shabbos and the Rosh over there as well, and the Ritva in Masech Avodah Zarah that there's still an isser derabanan of Mesayea Yudei Iver, even though there's no isser of Lifnei l'sit mishal. Lifnei l'sit mishal is only betray Iver the Nahara when there is no possibility. When the person who's doing an Aver would not have been able to do it without you. Nevertheless, even if he would have been able to do it without you, but you're helping him do it, there's an issue derabanan of Mesayea Yedei Iver Aver, which sometimes the place can also call Lifnei Iver derabanan. There's Lifnei Iver deraisa, which is betray Iver the Nahara, and Lifnei Iver derabanan, which is even when it's without Trei Iver the Nahara, or some place can say Chad Iver the Nahara. So those are that's the basic the sugya in Gemara and in Rishonim of Lifnei Iver. So now, the Alter Rebbe in Hilchos Shabbos, in Hilchos Erevin actually, Sibin Shin Mem Zayin. It's on the screen, but I want to read it inside. See how the Alter Rebbe presents this sugya. Again, just for the context, we're talking about the case. One person is standing in Rosh Hashanah, another person is standing outside. The Mishnah calls it Balabayas and an Ani. We're going to talk about why Dafka Balabayas and an Ani. That's again over here. We're talking about one person is standing inside Rosh Hashanah, another person standing outside, and is transferring objects from the Rosh Hashanah outside into the Rosh Hashanah. That person is Iver and Isser Deraisa of Haitzah Mershus Rishus. Says the Alter Rebbe over here, Sif Gimel, Aval Zeh Shenita Lachefetz Mimenu, but the one from whom the object was taken, Pater is Pater. He was not over on any Isser of Hitzah, Umuter, and it's permitted for him to do it, Mishum Isser Shabbos. It's permitted insofar as Shabbos is concerned. Shahei lo yasa klum, Aval Aser Menatera. But there's an Isser Da'iraisa of allowing the person to who's standing outside to take something from you and transfer it into Rishus Harabim. There's no Shabbos problem. There's a Lifnei Iver l'sit in Michshel Isser Da'iraisa. Okay. If the object was placed in such a way that he would have been able to take it, even if he wouldn't have given it to him. So then there is no Isser of Lifnei Iver Minater, like we learned in Avodah Zarah. Lifnei Iver Minater is only betray Iver the Nahara if he would not have been able to take it without your help. Aval Midivrei Sefer Maser Litnei, but it's still Aser. Rabbonim, afilu hu nachri, v'afilu bekarmelis commission is Rabbi Simon Shin Chafei Metavish Baruch even for a guy for a different reason. My sign of Yisrael yash oid iser midivrei seifrim mipnei shemisayeh la ivrei aver. V'lachin aser lahoshit lemumrim dvar iser. Therefore, it's forbidden to extend to a mummer, to a yid who's not shemer terei mitzvahs, any dvar iser afilu yachal hamummer litlei ba'atzmei, even if he would have been able to take it by himself. Because there's an Isser Mesayea Yedei Iver Aver. Before we go further, just want to note, Derech Agav, this last halach over here, Asr Laheshet L'Mum Dvar Isser, is important to emphasize, because you may hear from certain Rabbonim, from other in Shiurim and Svarim, that there is no Isser of Mesayea by a Mummer. And the source for that is a Shach in Yeridea in Siman Kufnun Aleph. The Shach seems to say that there is no Isser of Mesayea by a Mummer, and Taisus and Avodah Zarah also seem to say that's where the Shach, that's the marker of the Shach. However, the Alter Rebbe over here clearly says not like that. Even if he would have been able to take it by himself, and it's only an Isser Mesayea, it's Asr to be Mesayea a Mummer to do an Avera. And moreover, the Dagul Mervava over there in Yeridea says that that's not even what the Shach means, and he learns the Shach differently. In any case, there are a lot of Achreinim who understand the Shach Kipshute. The Pri Megadim in a few places in Erechaim seems to understand that way. Dagul Mervava doesn't. In any case, the Alter Rebbe clearly doesn't pass in this way. Okay, moving along. Sif Dalet. One more Sif. over here in Shinam Zayin. V'chein asr lahashel kli malacha b'Shabbos liYisrael hachashad lasis malacha b'Shabbos. It is also forbidden to lend on Shabbos to a Yid a kli malacha if he's suspected of doing a malacha with it on Shabbos. Afilu hu kli hamatzil lishel b'makam acher. Even if it's something that he would have been able to borrow somewhere else. Somebody who is Rahman al not Shemer Shabbos comes to you and comes to you on Friday afternoon, can I borrow your car for tomorrow? It's also to lend it to. It's Mesayea Yedei Iver Aver. If he has no other place to borrow a car from, then it's an Isser Derais. Even if he has other people he could borrow a car from, then there's an Isser of still an Isser of Mesayea and Isser Derabanan. If it's something that is not like a car can only be used for Melechas Isser on Shabbos, but something that could be used for Melechas Isser and Melechas Heter. In Hilchos Shabbos, there's an example of a hammer. A hammer could be used for Melechas Isser. It could also be used for Geizim and other things. So it could be used for Melechas Heter. Mutar la'ashiloi imhu kli hamatzi. It's permitted to lend it to him if it's something that's matzi. If it's something that he would have been able to get somewhere else, it was only an Isser of Mesayea. Plus, you could be told that he might be doing only a Melechas Heter with it. Then it's permitted. But okay. But if you can't be told, if there's no possibility that he might do a Melechas Heter with this Keli, and then it's forbidden to lend it to him, even in a place where it might be Darkei Shalom, where it might be where he might get offended. Okay, the main nekuda that's relevant to us is this last halach over here. Likewise, somebody who is involved in doing a malachas iser, you didn't help him, you didn't enable him to do it, he's doing it on his own. You're not allowed to tell him, Batzlacha, Chazak. Even though it's derech eretz, we see somebody who's doing something, who's working hard, to tell them titzlach v'malachtecha, even to a guy. If a yid is doing a malacha on Shabbos, you're not allowed to tell him titzlach malachtecha mishum shemachzik yidei evrei aver, because you're supporting yidei evrei aver. Okay. To summarize, what did we learn in Siman Shin Mem Zayin? We learned that there are three categories. Lifnei, which is an Isser Derais. Mesayea Yedei Every Avera, which is an Isser Derabanan, which is when you enable someone to do an Avera that they would have been able to do without you, but you're enabling them to do it, or you're helping them do it. There's an Isser Derabanan. And then there's a third level of Machzik Yedei Every Avera, when you're not doing anything at all. They're doing it on their own already. You're still not allowed to be Machzik, you're still not allowed to tell them Titzlach Malachtecha. Now let's go back to Hilchos Gezeilah. Actually, before we go back to Hilchos Gezeilah, we're not going to look at it inside. Let's talk about the Rambam. The Rambam in Hilchos Geniva, Parakeh Halacha Aleph, says as follows: Asr liknis min aganav chayfet shaganav. It's asr to purchase from a ganav an object that he stole. V'avin gadolhu, and it's a big avera, very similar to the lashon of the Alter Rebbe here, which is also the lashon of the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Shin Nun Vav. Because it's a big avera. She'er machzik kedei every avera. V'goyrim le'lignev gnevas acheres. You're causing him to steal more, because if he's not going to find anyone to purchase it, he's not going to steal. Again, similar to what the Alter Rebbe brings down here. However, in Hilchos Gezeilah, the Rambam writes as follows: Asr liknes davar hagazel min hagazlan. It's forbidden to buy something that's stolen from a gazlan. Remember, the Alter Rebbe here, even though he starts off mi'aganav chayfet shaganav, a little bit later he says v'chein asr liknes megazlan, he puts them together. The Rambam and the Rambam in Hilchos Geniva, Hilchos Gezeilah, and so too Shulchan Aruch are in two different places. So the Rambam in Hilchos Gezeilah, you would think that it would be the same exact halacha, copy paste. Just replace ganav with gazlan. No, the Rambam says as follows: Asr liknes davar hagazel min hagazlan, v'asr l'sadei al shinuya kedei sheikneu. It's asr to steal something that's stolen from a gazlan. It's also asr to help the gazlan alter the object that he's stolen, as we'll learn later. When a stolen object, we mentioned it in the past, we'll mention it again in the future, that when a stolen object is altered in an irreversible way, then the gazlan is kainet. Okay. Anybody who does any one of these things is mechazik yedei every avera, va'over al v'lifnei Iver leisitin michsh, and is over on iser deraisa of lifnei Iver leisitin michsh. So anyone who learned Simon Shin Mem Zayin and Erechaim, like we just did, question jumps out. How is it Lifnei Iver L'sit and Michshel? It doesn't sell to you. He's going to go sell it to someone else. It's maximum Meseyia, and this is the Rabbonim. The Shulchan Aruch in Simon Shin Samach Tas, in Hilchos Gezeilah, copies down, right, brings the lashon of the Rambam word for word. The Tur brings the Rambam almost word for word, but leaves out this nekuda of Lifnei Iver. He says it's aser machazik yedei every. He stops there. It doesn't say lifnei Iver l'sitin michshel. So there are a few diyukim l'sheinis that we could do, just bechlal the difference between ganav and the way the Rambam writes about the ganav, the way the Rambam writes about the gazlan. But the main question is why is it different? Without getting into all the why is it different? How come by ganav the Rambam writes chelak and ganav seine nafshe, and over here lifnei Iver, and by the ganav he doesn't mention lifnei Iver. And number two, the main question is, how is there Lifnei Iver? Now, I don't want to keep you in suspense. I don't have a very good answer for any of these questions. But the reason I'm bringing it up is now to compare to the Alter Rebbe and see how the Alter Rebbe, every word in Sif Tes over here, stims, fits perfectly, mamash kafta v'farach, with everything we learned until now, with the Gemara and Avodah Zarah, with the halachos and Hilchos Shabbos. Asr liknes me'aganav ha'chefet sheganav va'avin gadlu. Shaharei machzik yedei every avera. Number one, when you're buying from a ganav, it's a big avera because you're machzik yedei every avera. First of all, minimum, even if you're not helping him, assisting him in any way with the geniva, he already did the geniva by himself without your help. By buying it from him, you're supporting his avera. If somebody's doing an avera, you're not even allowed to tell them titzlach memalachtecha. Halachos kam v'kam, they're not allowed to go and buy it from him. Say shkoyach. You went, you stole whatever it is. Now I'm going to buy it from you. Good job, very nice. Not only by regular machzik kedei every avera, which is a din, we learn it from Shavias, whatever. It's a very serious thing that's already mefurish in Tanakh. How do we know that it's an oven gadol? Because of B'divrei Kabbalah, we have a pasuk in Mishlei, Chaylokim ganav seina nafshi. Moreover, you're not only machzik yedei every avera, there's another level over here. Mesayea yedei every avera, because you're causing him to steal more. It didn't have to be you. He could have done it with someone else. And the geniva already happened. But by you buying it from him now, you're taking an active part in the geniva. Because if he's not going to find any customers, he's not going to steal. Like the Gemara says, "Lav achber ganav l'chayr ganav." The place can bring it down over here. The mouse is not the thief. The hole is the thief, because if the mouse doesn't have anywhere to hide, it's stolen goods. It's not going to steal. So by you buying something, even though the gneva l'chayr already happened, there is still by buying it, you're mesayea yedei every avera to taking an active part in the gneva now. Shem liyim tzalakech in the gnev. But Lifnei Iver doesn't say a word of here. Lifnei Iver, and we understand why. It's not Lifnei Iver. The way according to our simple understanding of what Lifnei Iver is. Also later in the Siman, there's another place we're talking about that we mentioned that earlier, that also L'Sad Al Shinuyi, the Rambam mentions that it's Lifnei Iver. Shulchan says Lifnei Iver. The Alter Rebbe says Mechazik Kedei Every Avera. He does not say Lifnei Iver. To get back to the Rambam for a minute, the Mishnah Lamelech in Hilchos Malva, there's a lot in Hilchos Malva that that we're not allowed to lend money with ribis. It's an isser there. It's very serious isser. Not only is there an isser to lend money with ribis, there's also an isser to borrow with ribis. Why is there an isser of borrowing money with ribis? Either lifnei Iver or mesayea. If he has no one else to lend money to, there's an isser of lifnei Iver deraisa. If he does, then there's an isser of lifnei Iver derabana. The Mishnah Lamelech and Hilchos Gezeilah has says an interesting is machalik between Moishet Kais Yayin Nazir, giving a cup of wine to a Nazir, which we mentioned earlier, giving Iver Menachai to Ben Noach, that over there we need Trey Iver Dinahar. Why? Because over there, either he's going to take it himself, or you're going to give it to him. The Aver is going to do the Aver anyway. So so by you giving it to him, if it's not B'Trei Iver Dinahar, by you giving it to him, so it's not really a Lifnei Iver. It's only Mesayea Midrabanan. That's why over there it has to be Trey Iver Dinahar in order to be Lifnei Iver. But by a Malva Veloiva, so what that he can go and lend money to someone else? Right now, you're being machshel him. The Mishnah Melech doesn't say these words, but l'chera we could explain. There's a difference between when you're doing an aver with an object and doing an aver with another person. When you're doing an aver with an object, so either he's taking it himself or I can give it to you. In any case, you can do the aver. So therefore, it's not b'trei Iver dinahar. So there's a chiluk. If it's lifnei Iver, it's mesayea. We're doing an aver with another person. So what? So if I don't do it with you, I'll do it with him. But right now, when I'm doing it with you, it's an isser daraisa of lifnei Iver. This is how the Mishnah Lamelech learns. According to this, it would be the same thing by a gazlan and a gana. By now buying from him something that he stole, right now being machshel him in an uGeneivah, because if I don't buy from him, so it's not correct, but we'll suggest it that maybe the Rambam is Taka learns like the Mishnah Lamelech, and that's why the Rambam says by gzela there's an isser of lifnei Iver, even if you would have been able to sell it to someone else. But it's not correct because first of all, then why doesn't the Rambam say by gneva? Like we mentioned earlier, by gneva even the Rambam doesn't say lifnei Iver. Number two, there's mashma in the Rambam in a few other places in Hilchos Gezeilah and Sefer Mitzvahs that the like Mishnah Lamelech, we're not gonna let's not get into it. It's already very late. In the end, I found Steich Ahmed in the Marachas Vav, Klal Chavav, Eisid Zayin. Will be on the handout. If you want to look into it, there's a whole arichos over there in the Rambam Shitta and Lifnei Iver that Achirim already talk about. That the Rambam in Mishnah Torah does not mention anywhere this chiluk of Trei Iver the Nahara, and they talk about it. They suggest a few different mahalchim. We can look over there, but the reality is that the Rambam does not, for whatever reason, does not mention this chiluk, does not get into the chiluk of Trei Iver the Nahara. In a few places in Mishnah Torah, the Rambam says Lifnei Iver b'pshitus without being mechalik between Lifnei Iver and Mesayea. Achayim talk about it. La halacha, the Taisfis, the Rosh, the Ritva, all the other Rishonim are mechalik between Lifnei Iver and Mesayea, and that is the halacha in Siman Shin Mem Zayin and in a few other places in Shulchan Aruch. Also want to add that the Alter Rebbe in Hilchos Ribis Beferish does not learn like the Mishnah Lamelech. The Alter Rebbe is mechalik over there by even by Ribis, if it would be possible to perform the loan with your help, without your help. There's a chiluk if it's lifnei Iver or mesayea. Okay. We have a few more minutes. I want to just learn Sif Yud and hopefully also Sif Yud Aleph. Hopefully we don't run out of time. There isn't going to be too much to add outside of what it says in Shulchan Aruch. So I'd like to move through these sifim a little bit quicker, and then we could move on to other sugyas later in the siman. Sif Yud. Even if you don't know that a given object is stolen, being that the merchant is a known gazlan anon ganef aser liknes mimenu shum davar sheyesh lachash shehu gazal ganef. It's forbidden to buy anything that there's reason to suspect that it's stolen. Elim kin yadua sheyesh legam shaloi kayetze, unless you know that is a person who steals iPhones, but he also has his own iPhones, so you can buy an iPhone from him because you could have mutter ben liknes ben lehanas mimenu bechinam. Then you're allowed to buy it from him or have hana without buying it from him. Even if he only has a little bit of a certain object of his own, and most of it is stolen. Right, to use the example mentioned before, somebody is in the business of stealing phones. So if he has some of his own phones, you're not sure if it's a stolen or if it's something that's legitimate. You could be toiled lahak. But if you know that this object is stolen, it's usher to have any hana from it. Bein leknoisa, whether it's to buy it from him, bein ba'eda b'rshus hagazla. Whether if you're not buying it from him, but you're having hana while it's still in the gazlin's possession, like to ride on a stolen animal, to get a ride with a gazlin in a car that he stole, even though the gazlin stole it and he's still holding on to it, and he has a problem that he has to now return it. You are not allowed to have hana from it. You're not allowed to catch a ride in that car. Even if the original owners already gave up of ever getting it back, it's still an issur. Excuse me. It's still an issur now. Because Yeosh alone does not affect the transfer of ownership from the original owners to the Gazlan, like by Mitzia, by Shavas Aved, the Bailam or Miyash, so then the ownership transfers by Gazela. The Yeosh alone is not enough, as we mentioned in the previous year. Because it originally came to the Gazlin's possession be'isr, it remains in his possession be'isr until he does something about it, until he returns it, or unless there's a shinei rishus or another type of alteration, as we'll see. But yish by itself is nothing. Even to have hana from a stolen object, I know that if the original owners, they wouldn't mind. For example, to get change, you're not allowed to break a 20 with the stolen cash, even though the original owners, they wouldn't mind. If it wasn't stolen from them, could you break a 20? Sure. But because now it's stolen, you're not allowed to have any hana from it. Similarly, to enter a stolen house, to seek shelter from the sun or from the rain, or to cut across a stolen field. That's forbidden. In order for the purposes of a mitzvah, we're machmer even bestam commissions. What this means is, we said it's usher to have hana from a field only if you know that it's stolen. Gzula bevade, to go into a house that's guzzle bevade. But if you don't know that it's guzzle, so stam houses are becheskas kashers. Yeah, you don't have to assume that they're stolen. When it comes to mitzvahs, when it comes to if you want to buy a lulav, we don't buy a lulav from a stam field until you know for a fact that it has a not just a passive regular cheskas kashers, but it has to have an established status of being not stolen. Even if the bailim, even if the original owners already had yeush. Even if not only there was yesh, but there was also a transfer of ownership. Because land can never be stolen. Meaning it can't be have the status of it. It could be stolen. It can't have the status of being stolen. Karka is always considered as if it's in the rishus, in the possession of its original owner, and therefore it doesn't matter how many official sales there are, and even if they already gave up on ever getting it back, nevertheless it remains an isser hana on stolen property, stolen house, the stolen field, as mentioned above. But movable object that were stolen, and then the owner is the spirit of ever getting it back. ever getting it back. And then it was sold to someone else or given to someone else as a gift. Then the ownership transfers to the new owner, because he didn't steal it. So there is Yeush, and the new owner got it legitimately. Because there was already Yeush before it came into his Rishus. So that's similar to Mitzia. You find something. If you find something and the Bailam already were miyash from it, so then mutar lehanis by huva chalada min adin. The halacha is you're allowed to have enough from it. But it was usher to take it. Since he knows that it's stolen, and something that's stolen is usher bana even after Yeush, we call it usher bana usher l'kneis, and something that's usher bana it's forbidden to buy. Therefore, if you want to do the right thing and take off this isser that you now that you bought it, so it's fine. You're allowed to have enough from it, but to buy it was usser. So if you want to get rid of that isser, you want to undo that isser, should return it to the original owners. This is all talking about if the ganav or the gazlan sold it to you or gave it to you willingly. But if somebody took it from the ganav or the gazlan by force, that's not shinei rishus. That's not considered a transfer of ownership. Since they did not give it to them willingly, and then minadin, not latzasidei shemayim to do the right thing. Minadin, if you took it from the ganav by force, then one is obligated to return it to the original owners. Me'ikar adin. In these regions, the minig is, it's a funny lashon, haminig minadin, but the reason is because it's a minig minadin means dina de malchusa, because the secular law was that you should return it even after yesh shina rishus, so therefore the minig is to do that. Kol gzela gneva filo yachar yesh shina rishus, elashim nasam damim machzirin leidamav. Even after yesh shina rishus, the minig is to return it, but if you paid for it, then the minig is that the owners reimburse you for what you paid. Vein lashanis, one should not deviate from this custom. And if you don't know who the owners are, then you have to make an announcement and announce that you have this such and such an object that was stolen, and the owner should come and get it, just like by Hashavas Aveda. And with that, we'll stop here for today, and we'll continue Be'ezer Hashem next week with Sifid Beis. Thank you to everyone who joined.
Thank you very much.